Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. Well, there's been a very interesting development in the situation with regard to Afghanistan. Last week, the National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien, announced that by early next year, most U.S. troops will have been withdrawn from Afghanistan, leaving about 2,500 U.S. forces left behind. And then President Trump tweeted out, said, no, all U.S. troops will be out by Christmas. Upon which, in a very strange incident, the chairman of the
NPR,
gave an interview to NPR in which he said that no, U.S. forces will not be withdrawn by Christmas. Any U.S. withdrawals will be conditioned, and I will decide when and how many and if U.S. troops will be withdrawn. Now, this is a rather extraordinary development because he's a military person, the most senior military person, but he's answerable to the president. If the president says, I want all forces out by Christmas, then you would expect the chairman of the Joint Chiefs to be saying, yep, let me work out how to implement this plan. In this interview, he claimed that what he was saying, that with U.S. withdrawals are conditioned by Taliban behavior or what things on the ground, is simply false. There is absolutely nothing at all in that agreement that was signed last February that suggests that U.S. forces withdrawal is conditioned on Taliban behavior, other than if the Taliban attacks U.S. forces. And so far, no one has accused the Taliban of attacking U.S. forces. So what do we have here? We have, once again, evidence that the military seems to ignore their civilian commander-in-chief. What do you think, Peter?
well, obviously that's the case here. I mean, the Joint Chief of Staff, I mean, for him, the conditions will never be correct for a U.S. withdrawal. And that's something he doesn't even think of. I mean, he thinks of conditions to keep troops there because that's what they've done for 20 years. All right. So, I mean, you have to, there's not good faith there. OK. Second of all, breaking the chain of command and defying the president of the United States in a very public way on a news outlet that is very hostile to the president. And also the third thing that's very interesting, and it's something that it shows institutional erosion, because there is a sense in Washington now, and the reason why we're doing this in the military as well, is that the president's power is diminishing because there's the perception that he will lose on November 3rd. Now, see, this is very dangerous, extremely dangerous. The president is president as long as his term is in force, okay? No one's pulling. Unlike Nancy, there's no 25th Amendment issue in play here. This is, you sent me that link to the CNN story. George, that's the first time I've read something on CNN in 10 years, okay? And you know what really bothers me? That a smart person would have had a sidebar, something like, it's unusual for a military official to be questioning the administration and his boss. I mean, they didn't even have that, okay? I mean, it's really scary what the media has become, because, we all know the classic case, and that's MacArthur. And Harry Truman made it very clear. I am president of the United States. You work for me. And if I tell you to carry my briefcase behind me, that's exactly what you're going to do.
Right.
Okay. Right. And he fired the son of a bitch, as it's famously said. Okay. So, but
and
now we have this
Obama fired the general as well. Yeah.
That's right. McChrystal. And you know what? He should have. He should have done that.
Yep.
I don't want anyone watching this to misunderstand. George and I are very clearly been against this conflict in Afghanistan for 20 years, okay? I'm talking about the chain of command, because when you do not have the chain of command, then you have people acting out and taking the initiative on their own, which is really scary, okay? If the general can say that, then he can say a lot of other things. And people in the military the chain of command underneath him will follow through. Okay, so this is a very important story. It shows the erosion not only of the Trump administration, but the erosion of the rule of law that we have, that the military absolutely and unconditionally follows civilian leadership.
Right. And what was also alarming in that CNN story is that it disclosed that U.S. forces in Afghanistan have been launching military attacks on the Taliban in recent days. Now, that certainly is not in accord with the agreement. The agreement would be that neither side would be attacking one another. And the reason why, according to the CNN report, the U.S. was attacking the Taliban forces because, I said the Taliban was launching attacks against Afghan government forces. Well, that's a separate issue. That has nothing to do with the U.S. agreement with the Taliban. It was very specific. U.S. set a timeline. All U.S. forces would be out within 14 months. That was late February, so 14 months will be around the beginning of May. All U.S. forces would be out. The only thing that the Taliban was obligated to do was not to attack U.S. forces and not to provide any kind of sustenance, help, assistance to Al-Qaeda or ISIS or anybody else who wishes ill to the United States. There was nothing at all there about the United States continuing to help the Afghan government. So for the U.S. military now to be launching attacks, supporting the Afghan government against the Taliban sounds very much like they're trying to provoke the Taliban to retaliate against U.S. forces and thus provide a justification for not withdrawing U.S. forces at the time.
Obviously, the question arises, I don't know to what degree it's meaningful, but I mean, is the Joint Chief of Staff, is he waiting for a Biden administration? Is he waiting for?
Yeah, could well be.
I mean, I don't know, okay? I mean, it's well documented that American involvement in Afghanistan is a huge grift. I mean, huge. I mean, this would make the most corrupt regimes in the world blush, is that how much money is poured into Afghanistan every single year and then poof, disappears all over the place. I mean, of course, the Afghan government doesn't want this. They want this the U.S. to stay because, they're making a huge run to the bank. Every month the U.S. stays there because we all know as soon as the U.S. is out, the Taliban will just crush the Afghan government. Though the government will pack up all of its money, it'll get in helicopters and it'll go to some, sheikhdom on the Gulf. Okay, end of story. Okay, everybody knows this. Everyone does. Don't you think the Afghan government has made contingencies already? I bet you they have hotel reservations somewhere on the coast for January. Okay. I mean, this is such an insult to people, an insult to American taxpayers, and an insult to the Americans that have perished there that never should have in the first place. We can go back to the origins of this. The attacking Afghanistan, you can make an argument for it. It was a police action getting these individuals that are claimed to have been associated with the 9/11 events and then withdraw. There was no need ever to occupy that country. And smart people knew it at the time, but it ended up being a grift.
That's right. And that's why there seems to be, again, ever since that agreement was signed with the Taliban, the U.S. military has been rebelling against it. I mean, remember, for a few months, and in fact, it's still ongoing, we had these ridiculous accusations that the Russians were paying bounties for the heads of American soldiers. Now, no evidence was ever produced, but the goal of these stories was obvious, namely that U.S. withdrawal is halted. You can't withdraw under conditions in which the Russians and the Taliban are attacking American forces. So if Putin wants it, obviously we can't possibly do it. And that's going on, right? And still, I mean, this is Biden and Harris are still accusing Trump of having done nothing, of not having confronted Putin over these ridiculous stories. So now we have a different one, which is the army is now assisting the Afghan government, which it's not supposed to do according to the terms of the agreement.
Well, in an investigation of this have shown is that the person that actually made this claim is associated with the Afghan government. No surprise there. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this insults common sense so much. Okay. And I also have to believe that the Joint Chiefs, they see the withdrawal in one country. Oh my God, it could happen elsewhere, like in Iraq, where we've been told to leave repeatedly. Syria, we've been told to leave repeatedly.
Right, right, right. Yeah, no, that's right. And again, it is a pattern. I mean, it's the event that we talked about before, what happened in 2015 when the Ash Carter and the Russians made an agreement that there would be joint U.S.-Russian operations against ISIS. And lo and behold, within hours of that signing of the agreement, the U.S. troops launched an attack against the Syrian government forces, and poof, there goes the agreement. So there's a pattern here of the army not taking
claimed to have been a mistake.
A mistake, yeah, exactly. Amazing how so many of these mistakes take place. Yes.
Again, it's like spitting in your face and accepting it. Okay, it's such an insult here. So I mean, another thing, I could 3 points there, but again, we don't have the executive branch, everyone on the same page, and it shows an administration adrift, and that's really not the message we should be sending. As a country.
No, I agree. But the problem is that this has become a pattern within the Trump administration where you have the military, the intelligence, the domestic security forces, all of them are sabotaging Trump. Everyone seems to be imbued with the mentality of Alexander Vindman and Fiona Hill that we mid-level bureaucrats get to decide what U.S. policy is. And the president has no say in any of this. I mean, he doesn't know it. We are the experts. We get to decide this. So that's kind of what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs is saying. Well, I will make these decisions, and I will at some point let the president know what my decision is.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like in Syria, the CIA backed its groups and the Pentagon backed its groups, and those two groups fought each other.
That's it.
You can't make this stuff up.
If ever there was a time for withdrawal of forces, it's the U.S. From Afghanistan. They've been there now, getting on for 19 years. It's now already more than 19 years. It's a war that has long lost any meaning, any purpose, any support, except for the bureaucrats and the military apparatus, who clearly have a vested interest in keeping it going.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Peter. And we'll certainly keep an eye out on whether any U.S. withdrawals are pending. All right. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye-bye.